Okay, everybody. We are not really, we're about halfway through, I guess, the fiction section. And several of you have asked about a video. It does show that there's a video, or it's supposed to have been a video that is linked inside the fiction essay, as I will show you in just a second. But there is not at this point. In fact, the one that I was using has a short story attached to it. And since you haven't yet read The Horse Dealer's Daughter, I did not want that to be what we discussed. So I'm not going to post that. Instead, I'm making a new one. What I would like to do, though, is go through a little bit about the fiction essay so that you understand kind of what I'm looking for. You have already had Comp 1, and so it is extremely important for you to follow all the instructions that you kind of learned in Comp 1, because my expectation is that you know how to write an MLA style format paper, that you know how to create an introduction and a conclusion, and structure an essay and do all that kind of stuff. So I am not going to be going over with videos, talking about MLA format. If you are not sure about MLA format, the best thing you can do, and I'll go ahead and open up a new thing, and all you do is you go to Purdue OWL website, and you can say MLA if you like. That'll really be good. Let's see, MLA general format, Purdue. And then it goes through and it actually is going to talk to you about, hey, this is what the paper looks like. And you can even see the actual, how to make an in-text citation, how to make format, we don't use endnotes and footnotes for the most part, unless you're writing your dissertation. Don't worry about that. But it actually tells you what the margins are supposed to be, that it's in 12-point Times New Roman, blah, blah, blah. Those are things you should have learned in, I'm going to delete that ad. Those are things you should have already learned in Comp 1. So if you don't understand those, I would very strongly suggest that you go into your page again, and you go to MLA lessons and you follow those and make sure that you understand all the things that go with MLA. You need to have a heading that has the page number in it. So you first you add in page numbers, then you put your last name in front of the page numbers. You have an actual header on the first page that has your name, my name, the class, and the date. You have to have a title. Everything's double spaced, all these different things. You need to understand that. I am not going over those things. You should know them from Comp 1. If you don't, then go to the Purdue OWL website. All you have to do literally is go into Google search Purdue OWL, and you'll find it really easily. It's an online kind of writing center. So it's a great way to get those kinds of resources. But what I want to go through today is not the format for the paper, but to really talk about what is it that I'm going to ask you to do. And so there are two possibilities, and let's see what the other one is. Not that one. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and I have another one. I think that's the one I need. But we have a creative fiction essay, and then the other one we have is a prose comparison assignment. And so I'm going to make sure, I'm going to move this down so it's not in my way. But I want to make sure that I go through both of them so that you have a clue what I'm talking about. So with both the fiction essay and the poetry essay are going to be similar in that I'm asking you have a choice. You can either write a traditional essay where you compare two works from our readings. So you can compare The Secret Life of Walter Mitty to The Treasure in the Forest, or you could honestly, depending on what your theme is, what you want to do, you could choose almost anything. So that's absolutely and completely up to you. I'm going to expand the panel for a second. Let's see. It's not showing me this. So what I'm going to do is open this up. And I'm going to stop sharing this for a second, but you'll notice before I stop sharing it, the prose comparison assignment and the creative fiction assignment are both on the unit fiction essay, unit 1 fiction essay. They're both listed there. Read both of these before you decide what you are going to do, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing this for a second, and then I'm going to share something else. So we are going to share Microsoft Word. Okay. So hopefully it's going to pop up at some point. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm making sure, I want to make sure that this is actually sharing because it often doesn't show. Okay, good, it is. Okay, so this is this is one option, and I'm going to switch back and forth so that we can do both options. So the first option is the creative fiction essay. And really essays are creative, whether you're doing whichever one you're talking about, they're both creative. And so I'm just making sure that it's actually sharing the right line. Okay, so let's talk about this one first. And this is the one that's, if you're more into creative writing, or if you really like writing, I don't know, short stories or poems or things like that, then you don't like writing essays, this is going to be your way to go. Now, it is extremely important that you understand that this is not just you write a short story and that's your essay. Instead, you need to follow the instructions carefully. And half of your paper is still, or at least a third of it, is still going to be sort of in an essay format, but it's going to follow a different structure. Now, the paper could end up being, it says that it's a minimum of 500 words. The short story may be longer than that. That is totally okay. But it's really important for you first to choose a short story in what we've read that you feel either, needs to be rewritten, that you'd like to modernize into today's world, that you want to change some of the circumstances so that it either has, it resolves in some other way. You can change the gender of people, you can change their names and their situation, you can move them in location, you can change all sorts of other stuff. But you need to first figure out what story you want to do. So is there a story that really floated your boat? Is there a story that you found fascinating? Or even that you said, hey, this is not, I don't like this character, or I don't like the way that this ended up, or, something that you liked, that you thought the premise was interesting, but you didn't like where it went. And so you want to make it into something new. So you're essentially writing a sort of fan fiction, if you will. And that could mean, and these are all open, these are all, none of these are proprietary anymore. The authors have died long enough ago that you can write whatever you want. No one's going to sue you. But essentially what you're doing is you're creating your own short story from start to finish. Can some of the elements be similar? Yes. Do I want you to just use half of the first short story and then just write a new ending? No. I would like you to write it in your own words from the beginning to the end. So you're writing your own story. And then once you have written that story based on your fan fiction, whatever it is that you liked or didn't like about another short story, then the other half of your paper, or at least third, depending on how long your short story is, needs to be several paragraphs discussing why did you choose the story that you chose? How did you decide that you were going to change the characters, the setting, the gender, the time period, whatever? Or even the outcome. Why were you what made you decide to change what you changed? Because obviously just changing people's names, that doesn't mean anything. But if you're making other changes, what is it that you did that for? What was your thinking in doing that? And then even more, what was your goal in writing the story? Why? What were you hoping to do that the first story didn't do? Or maybe you wanted to make it more applicable to people today and you thought it was good, but it was outdated. And so you made it into something that's more applicable to teenagers or to adult readers today. And then you even say, what did the inspiration story need told? In other words, what is it that you thought what message did you think was coming through from the first story? And how did you adapt that to your new audience, the audience that you imagine for your story. And then I'd also like you to look at, what is it that you think the author would feel if he or she read your story? If you're doing a story of an hour and instead of her dying at the end, they end up having, she tells them that she wants a divorce and then they have to work through their marriage. Who knows what you're doing it for, but what is it that you think Kate Chopin would think about the changes that you made to her story? And then in the end, what do you think about your story? And it could be, I wish I'd have more time to write a better story or to polish it up a bit, or, whatever it is. It could be that you love your new story and you want to write more stories. I don't care. It's totally up to you. But it's kind of an honest sort of, almost like a journal entry, but it should still be in paragraph format, and the story needs to be polished. It needs to have polished characters. We need to clearly understand what's going on. The dialogue needs to make sense. So it's still going to have to be a polished essay. It's just not a traditional essay. So should you have a short story with a new title? Yes. But you can even put at the top, a new version of, and then put that in there. Or you can just put in your title for your essay, for your short story. It should not be the same title as the original short story. It needs to have a different title to make sure that you're not just rewriting the original story, but you're actually creating your own. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. If not, give me a call, okay? Or write me and say, it does make sense, and send me an email. But that's your first option. So you can write a short story that's based on or is inspired by, through circumstances or whatever, another story that we've read, okay? Then you need to remember, though, you write the short story and then you answer these questions in sort of an essay portion, the second half. Or you can do the first, make it the first half and then show us the short story. Either way is fine. Totally fine. But I will be grading you on all of these criteria. So make sure that you go through and say, okay, does it do this? Does it do this? Does it do this? Does it do all the things that this says it should be done? Okay. The other option you have, I'm going to stop and then I'm going to go ahead and just shut that one out. And then we're going to go here. And now I'm going to share the other one. And I think it's still Microsoft Word. Okay, and so now we're at that's still a creative fiction essay. So now I'm going to delete that. Okay, now we're at the prose theme comparison. I'm going to make sure that it's showing. Yes, okay, so the other option you have is more traditional, but this is it says write a minimum of 1,000 word essay. Okay, so remember the other one was a minimum of 500 word short story, but then you also have 500 words of an essay describing how you made the choices you made for the short story. And the more detail, of course, you give me, the better your essay grade is going to be on that. In this case, though, what you are going to do is you're going to look at the listing. Here's the listing, well, I'm still sharing this, but you're going to look at the list, what short stories have we read? And you're going to go, okay, I want to talk about, it says you can talk about whether they both come from a specific time period. There may be something within the short story that they both do, whether it's a surprise ending or it may be something, foreshadowing or characterization, or who knows, it's up to you what you want to talk about. Or it may be that they express a cultural reality differently. So, and that's where we get to the idea of a theme. So maybe they're both talking about marital relations and the relationship between husbands and wives. Maybe they're both talking about women's rights. Maybe they're both talking about greed. Maybe they're both talking about lies and deception. You can pick out what you think is important. It may be too that people, they're showing where love goes wrong, or where it's good and where it's bad. You decide. But once you do that, your job is to pick two short stories that both say something about whatever theme you've chosen or whatever time period or message you think is being said. And so then what your job is to go through and compare how does one short story manage that particular thing? So you're going through and you're going to be quoting from the text. Remember, in your journals, I've asked you to quote from the text to answer your questions. You're going to have to do the same thing with this. You're going to have to quote from the text and say, this is, in this, obviously their relationship is not what it should be, and here's why. How do we know this? Here's a quote, and then explain what that portion of the short story is saying. How does it reveal the greed of the people in The Treasure in the Forest because they're doing this and this? What steps do they take that show their greed? And what trouble do they get in because of their greed? Things like that. So you're going to have to show me those elements, and I am going to grade you on, are you using the text to illustrate what you're saying, and are you explaining it so that we understand? Don't assume we interpret it the same way you do. Show us how you interpret it and explain it to us. But that's the other option. So your job is to pick 2 short stories from that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that, and then I'm going to share Chrome again. Okay, so now we're back at the list. And that list is what you get to use for this kind of thing. Now, if you really say that you love The Masque of the Red Death, okay, and you go through and I really want to look at how people fool themselves into thinking that, that they're above other people and they're really not. Maybe that's what you really decide on, that's what you think was really cool about The Masque of the Red Death. Well, it may be that it's specific enough that we can't find, like you're looking at the rest of the list of short stories and you're like, I don't see another one that I really think says that. So that's okay. You can always send me a topic proposal that says, I really like to write about this short story, but what I'm really interested is in this theme. And then if we don't have another story that really fits that, I can help you find another short story that will. It may be that there's another short story by Poe that you can, because Poe wrote Masque of the Red Death. There may be another specific short story by him that would work. Or, I've read a lot of short stories. That's kind of what I do as an English teacher. And I can give you some other ones that you can look at and see what might work. And I can even send you links for them so that you don't have to go and search too far to find them. Okay. So don't think, if you find one short story you really like and you're not sure what to do with it, then, and you're kind of torn between the 2 topics, that's fine. All you have to do is talk to me, and I'll do what I can to help you either, not only decide on which of the 2 types of essays you're going to do, but also so that I can kind of show you, well, here's another short story you might use. If you've got it down to 1, but you're not sure of another one. Okay. And it may be too, especially if you're thinking about it now, we still haven't read the last 4 short stories. Well, 5. Well, yeah, because 1 was due yesterday. So we haven't read everything yet, and I can give you some ideas. Even if I don't think something fits, then I'll tell you, and I'll see what I can do to help you find another one that will. So hopefully that will be enough for you, and it will help you get along. The other thing too is, if you write a short story, whether you write the short story creatively or you write an essay, you definitely have the option to send it to me and say, could you look at this before I turn it in for real? The essay isn't due until September 25th, so we have time. As long as you send it to me, I mean, obviously it would be best if it's the week before, if you can send me something, even if this is, am I on the right track? Or, you can write about one of the 2 short stories if you're comparing. Write about one of the short stories and send it to me and say, is this what the kind of thing you're looking for? And I can give you feedback on it and write you back. So you have the option too to go ahead and get my feedback early before you turn it in for a grade. You have time. If you have questions once you've watched this video, please let me know. But I'm going to do what I can to have this posted within the next couple of hours. And I just email me. If you have any questions at all, email me or call me. My number and my contact information is in the syllabus. Thanks.